Hey guys, I'm JC and today we're playing Maelstrom Wanderer. This deck looks to ramp hard and then cast or cheat out some of the most powerful permanents Temur has to offer. If you enjoy the deck, then make sure to stop by the channel where we have a deck tech and other gameplay videos showing how it was built as well as how it plays out. Let's see what big permanents we can put into play. Alright guys, let's see who we're playing today. We have Liberator Urza's Battlethopter, we have Rienne Angel of Rebirth, and finally we have Chatterfang Squirrel General. Okay, if we have a look at our opening hand, we can't keep it. One land, not keepable at all, so let's mulligan this. Second hand isn't really looking much better. We have some very powerful cards. If we just had one more land, it'd be absolutely keepable. So I'm afraid we're going to have to go down to 6 here. Alright, well that hand's looking much better. We can definitely keep that. We have 3 lands, we have ramp. Emodi's very powerful, so is Lurking Predators. I mean, really, a lot of the cards in this deck are pretty powerful, so let's keep this. And we'll bottom Nezahal. Okay, now we start the game by drawing a land for turn. That's really good to see. So let's play our fetch land. We'll crack it straight away. Let's get our Triome into play. And that is going to be our stun for turn. Liberator plays a land for turn, a War Room, so they can use that to draw cards when they need to. And then they pass the turn. Rienne plays a land for turn. Now they cast a Wayfarer's Bauble. And that'll be it for their turn. Chatterfang plays a fetch land for turn. They crack it right away. They put a land into play. And that is them done. We draw a land for turn. Let's start by playing our Breeding Pool. We'll have it come into play untapped, so we'll pay 2 life. And let's cast our Nature's Law. We'll put our Stomping Ground into play. It'll come into play tapped. And then we're going to pass the turn. So it's good news for us so far. None of our opponents have had any crazy turn 1 starts. And what this deck really loves to do is basically prey on decks that give us enough time to actually get to our commander. So as long as nothing gets too crazy too soon and we can get to around turn 4 to 5 with this deck, we should be in a really good spot. Let's just keep our fingers crossed we hopefully maybe draw another ramp source. That'd be really great to see. Now Liberator does start by playing a Mishra's Factory for turn. It's like a land that can become a creature. And now they cast an Ichor Wellspring. When it ETBs or is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, draw a card. So draw a card now when it ETBs. And that is it for them. Rienne plays a land. And now they crack their Wayfarer's Bauble. They put a Plains into play. And then they pass the turn. Chatterfang plays a land for turn. But it looks like that is going to be it for them. We draw a Migration Path. Well, that is a really great top deck there. You couldn't ask for much better when it comes to ramping. So let's play our Forest for turn. And let's play that Migration Path. We're just going to put 2 forests into play. We'll make sure we get a snow covered and a normal forest in case we do run into our Field of the Dead. And then that's going to be it for us. Now our opponents are definitely going to want to step their game up here because with all the mana we have access to next turn, being able to cast Emodi or Lurking Predators, we're going to be in a pretty good spot, especially if both resolve and stick around. Liberator starts by playing an Urza Saga for turn. They will be able to eventually make a construct if they want to and then search their library for an artifact card with mana value of 0 or 1 and put it onto the battlefield. Now, because their commander does have flash here, they certainly can hold up mana and just pass the turn, but it doesn't look like they're taking that option here. They cast themselves a Sculpting Steel. Well, there is only 1 artifact on the battlefield, so it looks like they're copying the Ichor Wellspring, probably looking to keep their hand full. Now they'll draw a card off their copied Ichor Wellspring, and then they pass the turn. Rienne plays a land. Now they cast Mael's Aria. At the beginning of your upkeep, put a 1/1 counter on each creature you control if you control a creature with power 5 or greater. Then you gain 10 life if you control a creature with power 10 or greater. Then you win the game if you control a creature with power 20 or greater. Very interesting card, but nothing we have to worry about at the moment. And that is it for their turn. Chatterfang plays a land. And now they cast their commander, Chatterfang Squirrel General. It has Forest Walk. If 1 or more tokens would be created under your control, those tokens plus that many 1/1 green squirrel creature tokens are created instead. You can also pay a black, sacrifice X squirrels. Target creature gets +X, -X until end of turn. Really great commander to keep the board clear of any problematic creatures. Luckily for us, a lot of our creatures are actually quite big, which makes it hard for Chatterfang, at least in the early game, to be able to take them out. But that is it for their turn. Alright, well let's see what we draw here for our turn. We get ourselves a Fiery Emancipation. Well, that's a really nice finisher to have in our hand, once we actually do start cascading into some creatures. Now, because we do have 2 lands in hand, meaning that we can definitely get our commander down in 2 turns, I'm actually leaning towards playing the Lurking Predators here and trying to cheat out some creatures before that happens. We could get a Emodi down here and possibly run into one of our ramp spells, but I really like getting Lurking Predators down here. Just a very fun card in general, and it'll keep our opponents on their toes with just how many spells they actually cast. So let's cast that now. That goes through. We'll also play our island for turn. Definitely can't forget about that. And then we'll pass it over and keep our fingers crossed that it sticks around. Urza Saga triggers on Liberator's first main phase. So now they can use it to make a construct token. Now they play a land for turn, which does allow them to scry 1. And it looks like they do decide to make that construct token straight away. So it's currently a 3/3. Now they also cast a Shadow Spear. That does trigger our Lurking Predators. We get a Turn Timber Symbiosis. We'll put that on the bottom of our library. Shadow Spear, equipped creature gets +1/+1 and has trample and lifelink. You can also pay 1, so permanents your opponents control lose hexproof and indestructible until end of turn. And that is it for the Liberator player. On Rienne's upkeep, Mael's Aria triggers. It won't do anything, unfortunately. They play a tap land for turn. It's one that does allow them to tap it to put a 1/1 counter on each green creature that entered the battlefield this turn. Next, they cast a Lightning Greaves. That triggers our Lurking Predators. Let's hope we get something here. And it's just a land, unfortunately. We'll put that on the bottom. It looks like that's it for their turn. Chatterfang plays a land for turn. It is a Swarm Yard. They can tap it to regenerate an insect, rat, spider, or importantly, squirrel. And now they cast a Squirrel Mob. That triggers our Lurking Predators. And we just get a Farseek. Let's bottom that. Squirrel Mob gets +1/+1 for each other squirrel on the battlefield. Now they move to combat. Fairly likely we see Chatterfang come our way, because Lurking Predators is a pretty scary card. And it does. We're going to take the 3 damage. And that is it for the Chatterfang player. We draw a Nezahal Primal Tide. Well, that would have been nice to cheat into play here. But that's okay. We can actually get our commander down this turn. So let's start by playing our land for turn. Let's get the big boy himself into play and let's see what he cascades into. So on our first cascade trigger, we hit a Terror of the Peaks. That's a really good first hit now. Because when Maelstrom Wanderer ETBs, it is going to be able to do damage to any target. Let's see what our second cascade hits. And we get an Omnath Locus of the Rage. Well, that's definitely going to start to put a clock on our opponents. And definitely make our landfall a lot more relevant. Now that does trigger Terror of the Peaks. We'll start by taking out Chatterfang here. Just so it can't remove any of our creatures. And I think our second target's going to be the construct token. So let's take that out now. Now let's move to combat because all of our creatures do have haste. We'll send our Wanderer towards Rienne. Terror can go towards Liberator. And Omnath can go towards Chatterfang. Damage goes through unblocked. And that is going to be our turn done. If we can land this Fiery Emancipation next turn, then our opponents are going to be in real big trouble. That's for sure, especially if we do hit a couple more creatures off our Lurking Predators. So let's see how we go. Now, Urza's Saga does trigger on their first main phase. So we'll get sacrificed now. Let's see what they tutor up. Very likely we see a Soul Ring here. It's what most commander players usually go for when this part of the saga actually triggers. Now they play a land for turn, a Sanctum of Ugin. And it looks like they did find a Soul Ring there as well. Now they cast a Forsaken Monument. That triggers our Lurking Predators. And we do get a creature. We get ourselves a Sakura Tribe Elder. So we will be able to ping someone for 1 here. Let's put it on the Liberator player. Because now they are resolving a Forsaken Monument. Colorless creatures you control get +2/+2. Whenever you tap a permanent for colorless, add an additional colorless. And whenever you cast a colorless spell, you gain 2 life. Luckily, they won't have too much mana to be able to play around with once that actually does resolve. So we'll have another turn, but I think a lot of our damage is going to go towards them, unless of course the other 2 players do something that's a little more scarier than that. Next, Liberator casts Sensei's Divine in top. That triggers our Lurking Predators and their Forsaken Monument. Let's see if we get another hit. And we do. We get a Somberwald Sage. Unfortunately, that's going to be 0 damage from the Sage. So we'll just put it towards the Squirrel Mob. So if we keep our board state next turn, we should actually have potentially lethal damage on maybe 2 players. Because we can sacrifice Sakura Tribe Elder to actually make a 5/5 elemental thanks to Omnath. Now Liberator does gain 2 life. Now that does resolve. They do have a mana floating, so maybe they actually use the top here. And that's what they do. But it looks like that's it for them. Mael's Aria triggers once again on their upkeep, but it won't do anything. Then Rienne plays a land for turn. Now they cast Yavimaya Barbarian, that triggers our Lurking Predators. We have a Sylvan Library on top, we'll put that on the bottom. It's a 2/2 that has protection from blue. Now they tap their Oran Reef the Vastwood to put a 1/1 counter on that creature. They equip it with the Lightning Greaves. We could kill it here in response by actually sacrificing Sakura Tribe Elder and then using the damage from Terror of the Peaks, but I think we'll actually let this go here. I'm not really worried about that creature at the moment. Now they move to combat. They decide to pass straight through combat, and that is it for their turn. Chatterfang plays a land for turn. Now they cast Toski, Bearer of Secrets. That triggers Lurking Predators. We get ourselves a Nyx Bloom Ancient. That is a big hit there. Well, our opponents are probably going to be dead next turn just thanks to that. Terror of the Peaks triggers. We're going to hit Liberator right there. Try to take them down some of that life that they've been trying to gain from the Forsaken Monument. Toski can't be countered, has Indestructible, it attacks each combat if able, and whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. Now they move to combat. Let's see if they decide to hit the Liberator player here because they are open. They may want to do so if they want to draw a card and try to find some sort of answer to what we're doing. Though I don't think they're going to be able to find it in time, and that's exactly what they do. They attack the Liberator player. It seems we may have lost the Liberator player here because they've been away from keyboard for quite a while now. And it looks like we've had that player scoop. I'm not too sure if it was a bad connection or just maybe a little bit salty with the way the game's gone. But the Liberator player is out of the game now. Unfortunately, that does fizzle the Chatterfang player's draw, which is one of the big downsides of players scooping like that. So now they move to their end step. We're going to crack our Sakura Tribe Elder in response. We'll put a Forest into play. That's going to trigger Omnath. So we're going to make a 5/5 Elemental. That's also going to trigger Terror of the Peaks. We'll hit the Chatterfang player directly in the face with that damage. And now we go to our turn. And what a big turn it's going to be. Let's hope that our opponents stick around for a little bit of it so we can have a little bit of fun. Because once we do land the Fiery Emancipation, it's pretty much going to be all but over. And if it wasn't going to be over, a Pathbreaker Ibex off the top is certainly going to do the job. Let's try to have a little bit of fun here. So what we'll do is we'll start by tapping down our Somber Old Sage. We're going to add 9 blue creature mana. We're going to start by using some of that to cast Emodi. That's going to trigger Emodi's Cascade. We get ourselves a Sarkhan's Unsealing. Well, things couldn't have gone pretty much any better for this game. Maybe besides a few misses with the Lurking Predators, but we certainly didn't need it. I mean, this enchantment here may actually cause our opponents to scoop up once they read what it actually does. It's going to wipe the board of most of the creatures and start dealing damage directly to face as we start casting our big creatures. That does go through. Now Emodi does resolve. That'll trigger Terror of the Peaks. This time we'll hit Rienne directly in the face. Next, we're going to cast Nezahal. That's going to trigger Cascade and Sarkhan's Unsealing. So let's deal 4 damage to each opponent's face and each creature they control. Let's see what we Cascade into off of Nezahal. We get ourselves a Rampant Growth. Normally not that great a hit, but with Omnath on the board, it certainly is going to be. It makes us another big hasty body. Let's put a Mountain into play this time. That's going to trigger Omnath. That damage can go towards Chatterfang's face. Now with Nezahal ETBs, that's going to trigger Terror of the Peaks. We'll hit Rienne. Now we won't mess around any longer. Let's get down our Fiery Emancipation. That will trigger Cascade. Let's see what we get with our final hit. We just get a Vastwood Surge. So let's cast that now. We'll get 2 forests. That'll trigger Omnath twice. Our first hit can go towards Chatterfang. Our second towards Rienne. Now let's move to combat. There is of course a chance here that the Rienne player could actually have something like a Teferi's Protection. They do have 3 mana up. But we have to go for it anyway, and even if they do, we're in a pretty strong position either way. We'll send Maelstrom, our Terror of the Peaks, and Omnath towards Rienne. Let's send some of our Elementals over towards the Chatterfang player. We'll also send Nezahal as well. And let's see if that's enough to get the job done. Alright, well Rienne does pass priority there, so maybe they don't have Teferi's Protection. In response, Chatterfang activates their Swarm Yard, targeting Chatterfang. Not that it should matter much because he does have Indestructible anyway. And that is the game done there, guys. Alright, let's go to the review and discuss what happened. Well, this game pretty much went exactly how we would want it to. We were able to curve out perfectly, having access to 2 mana and 4 mana ramp on the turns we needed it, and we were also able to resolve our Lurking Predators and keep it around. The creatures it was able to cheat into play, in combination with those from Maelstrom Wanderer, was simply too much value and damage for our opponents to come back from. Even if one of our opponents did cast a board wipe the turn prior, our land count in combination with the Lurking Predators would have meant that turn after turn we were able to play out more and more threats, forcing our opponents to need even more interaction. This has always been the real strength of this Maelstrom Wanderer build. If the board does get wiped, you simply recast Maelstrom Wanderer to cheat further threatening permanents into play, and if not that, you simply ramp further, allowing you to cast those threatening permanents into play that you have in hand. This gives the deck a real resilience and value play that becomes harder and harder for your opponents to overcome as the game goes longer. Well, that's it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed seeing all the big fun permanents that this deck can include and play productively, so let it be a lesson to you that expensive spells in Commander are still viable, provided you play them in the right deck. Until next time, guys.